Good morning. We have items 2, 4, 5, and 6 that are going to go forward as a recommendation of the chair. We do not appear to have any public comment cards on 2, 4, 5, and 6. Correct? Okay, we'll take those items up together. We have one comment card on item 5. George, we're going to go to public comment on those items. George Villanueva. Your doctor? I can't read your writing. Are you a doctor?
Almost.
Okay, good. You're getting there. You're doing well. You're ahead of yourself. Okay. You have 2 minutes. You want to speak on item 5, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
George Villanueva, University of Southern California Metamorphosis Project, and a partner on the Northeast River Collaborative Project. We just want to express our support for the transfer of the HUD Sustainable Communities Challenge grant from the CRA to the city's CDD department. As an active partner in the grant's conception and fleshing out, we look forward to implementing this project that demonstrates innovative approaches to community economic development and civic engagement with the residents who live in the Northeast Los Angeles River neighborhoods. It's important to note that this project and its program goals was a standout on the national scale. As one of the first 41 grantees during the initial year of the Sustainable Communities Challenge Grant program that garnered over 700 applications, the NELA Collaborative Project scored in the top 6 in terms of amount of funding received. So the project's comprehensive community economic development is really kind of a bottom-up approach that embodies efforts towards creating sustainable communities at the national scale. So again, we just fully support the grant transfer and look forward to working in partnership with the Gila River Collaborative toward creating more sustainable communities and livable communities in Northeast Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your positive comments. Okay, that closes public comment on those items. Again, items 2, 4, 5, and 6 will go forward as a communication of the chair. Next, adopting the CAO report on those items. And how many comment cards do we have on 3? Any? No comment cards? Right here? You put your comment cards. Is there anybody here to speak on item 3? Is that for the grid? Yes. Okay, you guys are going to have to fill out some cards. Yeah, okay, got it. Is that item 3? Okay. Can you read items 2, 4, 5, and 6 into the record while we're waiting for?
Sure. Item number 2 for the record. Continued from meeting February 8, 2012, LHD report and resolution relative to adoption of TEFRA resolution and minutes for the Banco Popular project located at 354 Spring Street. Item number 4, scheduled for Friday in Council, 6/29/12, LHD report and CAO report relative to approval to issue letters of commitment for Round 2 of the 2012 Affordable Housing Trust Fund and various actions related to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, allocation of home and HOPWA funds to backfill community redevelopment of City of Los Angeles funding for Cuatro Vientos, Gateways Apartments, Tober Village, and Young Burlington projects, relocation of funding for Broadway Villas and Taylor Yard projects, and authorization for the LHD to enter into a DDA regarding the Broadway Villas project. Item number 5, also scheduled for council on 6/29/12, CDD report and CAO report relative to authorization to accept the transfer of $2.25 million in U.S. Department of Housing Urban Development Sustainable Community Challenge Grant for the Northeast Los Angeles Collaborative for the CRA, from the CRA-LA, a designated local authority, to the CDD authority to negotiate and execute an agreement with HUD and to assume the grant and related actions. Item number 6, also scheduled for council, 6/29/12, LEHD report and CAO report relative to authority to submit a substantial amendment to HUD to implement the City Neighborhood Stabilization Program also known as NSP2, funded by the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act of 2009, to add 2 additional census tracts to the NSP2 eligible target areas, amend 4 contracts, amend letter of agreement with the Department of Building and Safety, and related actions.
City Clerk, for the record, on the CAO report for that item, the council file should be noted as 10-0799.
Okay, duly noted for the record. Okay, once again, we went through public comment on items 2, 4, 5, and 6, and public comment is closed on those items. We have 2 members present, Councilmember Perry and myself, the Chairman Cardenas, and those items will go forward as a communication of the chair. Okay. Now, we will go next to item number 1.
Back to item number 1. LEHD General Manager's oral status report relative to ongoing LHD policies, work program, operations, and other items of interest.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back. How do you like our weather?
It's lovely.
Compared to?
Good morning.
Good morning. We'll begin by, again, welcoming you, Mercedes Marquez, re-entering your responsibilities of being the head of this department. And since with your time in Washington, D.C., can you give us a picture or a comment on what you feel about the future funding of home dollars and housing dollars in general for the city of Los Angeles from Washington?
My strong sense is that probably in this next budget year, funding will remain flat, I'm fairly certain. The House has already taken a preliminary vote on the home program, and it stays steady at $1 billion. I think it's important that it stays in 7 figures. My strong sense of that is that the home program has survived a brutal and unwarranted attack nationally, but it has survived. It continues to do great things. And like those of us that have been around a long time know that funding ebbs and flows with the power in Washington, and I think this is a low point. It's not the first time, but my sense is that it will resume. From discussions I had with members of Congress of both parties, there is support for the program. It will increase funding. I think CDBG will remain steady. It actually increased this last fiscal year, and I think it's going to remain steady at that level. I don't think it's actually going to go down. There's an enormous support across the country. I also think that as governors were elected, and many were Republicans, but they were mayors prior, so they have a strong sense of the importance of the CDBG program. So I think there's an understanding of that. So I think that's going to happen. Nonetheless, it is important for us to focus in on all opportunities, and so obviously an important thing, it seems that the state legislature is going to vote today on the trailer bill as it relates to redevelopment. The amendments that I was reading last evening are very positive for the city of Los Angeles in terms of resuming a flow of funding to be able to pay for the transfer and maintain the transfer, which is going to be key at LAHD because LAHD will be assuming an awful lot of work and staff will be needed to do that. Having said that, though, it is important to take a whole look at the structure of LHD. It's not sufficient to say that we should just increase in size. The current design of LHD is one that I'm, I guess, fair to say, the architect of from when I was the general manager in the past. And so it seems appropriate not just to increase in size, but to take a look at what's appropriate, what's the best way given our funding sources now. I also think it's important to speak to other entities within the state about other funding opportunities. Some are already planning that and have already begun discussions, and we'll come back and talk with you all about what we think is possible in order to move forward.
And what's your understanding of how, or the status of how things are moving forward when it comes to transferring of housing assets now that the CRA has been pretty much dissolved away from purview of the city?
Well, my understanding of what it's been like, a huge state of uncertainty, a lot of ambiguity about what the responsibilities are. But I do believe that this trailer language is clarifying much of that. I also believe that given what has gone on with the CRA most recently with this round of significant layoffs, we're moving very quickly towards the inevitable transfer. And the language now in the trailer bill clarifies immensely what has to happen. And so my sense is that the transfer will happen very quickly. We have a schedule on that, and I've been meeting since I arrived with different parts of LAHD that would have to receive different parts of the portfolio, plus active deals, plus the responsibility for monitoring. I will come back to you, sir. I will come back to you to discuss it. I think that is not all even. Mm-hmm. Right? There are different challenges in the different parts, and I'll come back in great detail to talk about that. I think one important thing that's happened is that you all did approve, thank you, the hiring of 3 exempt employees to help with that. They are actually, we have moved everything through. They are up and available for hire today. We're moving quite expeditiously. By next week, I believe we will have done that hiring and gotten all 3 on board.
Well, what is your recommendation on moving forward when it comes to permanent supportive housing efforts on behalf of the city? Obviously, there's never enough money, but when we focus more on one area, then we do less in other areas. So what is your recommendation or your vision looking forward on that? My sense of that is in this time that I'm going to spend with the City of Los Angeles, I'm both the Deputy Mayor for Housing and the Interim General Manager. So important that we start with a much more global view rather than just an LAHD view. There's no question that Los Angeles remains the hardest nut to crack nationally as it relates to homelessness. Among the items in my portfolio at the Department of Housing and Urban Development was homelessness. And Los Angeles has been selected by the President's Interagency Council on Homelessness as one of 10 cities to focus on. I was very much involved with all of that. My sense is that we need to do a bit more on coordination in the city, although lots has been done. And I think one of the relationships that will be very, very important is the deepening of the relationship between LAHD and the Housing Authority for the City of Los Angeles. We can't solve certainly the construction or rehabilitation of housing for folks unless those 2 agencies, unless the dollars are completely integrated. There is a process that the federal government announced just a month ago that changes the requirements in reporting and planning for the consolidated plan. With full disclosure, that's my plan that I set nationally. So I'm aware of everything that it involves. Los Angeles' consolidated plan is due in February of 2013, so we are subject to the new structure and the new rules. And one of the most important highlights of the new consolidated plan is that it really does call for the disclosure and the sharing of all kinds of integrated funding. So not just to talk about the dollars that are involved in the consolidated plan itself, but all of the other dollars that communities are using to leverage. So that will be very important. I also think that as we take a look at a stream of funding that could be realized with the transfer of the CRA portfolio and the income that is generated both from the portfolio and other sources of income, that it will be important to take a very close look at the use, the eligibility use of those dollars, and that we will do. So I would expect to come back to you with a much more focused view on what to do on homelessness, and I wouldn't be surprised if I were recommending more of a focus on that particular issue. Thank you. For those of you who have telephones with you or other devices that can and do make noise, could you please take this opportunity to double check them and make sure that they are not making noise, so that first and foremost it allows you to participate in this hearing and hear and listen to everything that's going on, And secondly, respect the rules of this hearing, which are common and standard throughout any jurisdiction. So please take the time and the responsibility of checking your phones and making sure that they are not in a mode that will interrupt your neighbors and this meeting. Thank you. I'd like to, one second, Mercedes, we'll go to questions to Mercedes in a second. I just want to announce that we do in fact have a quorum of the committee. We've now been joined by Councilmember Herb Wesson. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And welcome back. It's really good, really good to see you.
Thank you.
It's like you never left.
It's good to see you, Jan.
Thank you. And if you can't answer this today, I want to talk to you about this when you come back the next time, the impact of the loss of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and low to moderate income funds on Los Angeles housing program, what you think the current state of the housing market is here in the city, and what, based on your bird's eye view coming just in from Washington, the number of foreclosures and whether or not they're expected to decline.
The number of foreclosures are actually expected to increase. In 2013, we're going to have another wave of foreclosures. So we have to be prepared for that. My sense of it is, one, there have been so many different efforts across the country. And one of the things that we have to take a look at, I think, are relationships that have to be more solidly built, is that as a result of the $25 billion settlement with the banks and the federal government, the banks are for the first time, the leading banks, including Bank of America, which is overwhelmingly one of the servicers that is involved in holding paper here in our region. They are for the first time actually having to take a look at the reduction in principal. It's something that's been a long time coming, but it's for the first time that they're actually entertaining it. So I think that one of the things that I'm going to do pretty immediately is reach out to them, because everything has changed, and take a look at how that works for us. That is important both as it relates to those who are in danger of foreclosure or in default or along the line, but it's also because we do have a real problem by not having anything at the moment for moderate income people. So that's a real problem. The trust fund numbers are incredibly low, and the loss of redevelopment dollars is going to have a pretty powerful impact negatively on the ability to construct and rehabilitate affordable housing in any multifamily setting. I think we'll start seeing it very strongly within 12 to 13 months. It's going to be very bad. That is why I'm looking at all other options, including taking a look at the income that we get from the CRA with what's going to happen today in the state legislature. I think that when we took all those LLM funds, I think it will be important for us all together to make some strong decisions about locking up those dollars for the future, and perhaps having it be the very first permanent source of funding that is contributed to the trust fund. Time to take a look at that, so that one of the things that you all know is the most important for developers, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit, is that they have to have predictability. So if we could start to talk about what a stream could be, then we know what they could begin to do. There are some other things we're doing, conversations with the state now. You all know this is something that's been important to me for a long time, and that is securing our own apportionment of tax credits, like New York and Chicago have, and talking about when we're done with our portion and there's other dollars left on the table in the county, how do we negotiate having access to those? So these are all things that in the first 6 weeks that I'm here, I will be focusing on a lot. I'm already planning to go to Sacramento and have these conversations. And you know that as it relates to money for the city of Los Angeles, that I am shameless, and I'll take every dollar that I can find. So those are the types of things we're going to look at and what we're going to face as it relates to that. But it also means that we're going to have to take a look at the income levels that we serve, because those dollars have different restrictions, right? And we may find ourselves for a while actually focusing more on a lower median income as a whole in the program, and that may be appropriate for all kinds of reasons. And I'll come back to you and talk to you about that.
Ms. Wesson.
Welcome home.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll now go to public comment on item number 1. Thank you very much, Mercedes. First, we'll have Lewis South, Bill Huey, and Lewis Easy.
He's parking his car. He's here.
Okay, well, you better hurry.
I got it.
Ryan Jarvis and Lynn Cohen. Okay, we'll start to my right. Then, state your name for the record.
My name is Louis South. I'm here with particular interest in the idea that it's been cited by the activists from the community paying attention to what HACLA is going on with HACLA, that sometimes HACLA representatives represent themselves to tenants in a way that undermines the concern for getting along with the owner. So to set the tenant against the owner. And there's also a concern that, just generally speaking, there's a tendency, it's been stated to me several times over the past year, that HACLA does not entertain an owner asking to meet with tenant and any HACLA representative, just as a means to, out of courtesy, to have a communication line.
Never admit publicly, I told you this. We said the way the codes are written, everything is the landlord's fault. So if a tenant gets drunk and breaks up the inside of his apartment, pulls a smoke detector out of the roof, and then housing comes in, they cite the landlord. They won't even document when the renter admits that he got drunk and did the damage. So this is very slighted. These codes have to be rewritten so the guilty party is fined. You know, there are bad renters, yes. Most of them are good people. There are bad landlords, yes. The law, upstanding senior citizen is being abused by the LA Housing Department. There's a code of just anger and hatred towards landlords. She was inspected without the 15-day notice, so she filed an appeal. They told her, well, you have to pay your fee, your $201, or else you get a 300% penalty. Then you have to pay $128 to get an appeal. Why should anybody have to pay for an appeal? Okay, she paid it. She won. She's got letters that she won, and they're going to give her a refund. This is 3 years later. They still haven't given her a refund. They're saying, well, we're a year behind, and in some cases more than a year behind. How can the housing department justify being a year behind, and we're 1 day late? If the envelope gets in the mail 1 day late, we get a 300% fine. Yet the housing can take their good old time in giving her money. She's got letters. She's been shifted from one person to another. They're playing around with her. She does all the right things. Housing needs a complete house cleaning, and we have the wrong people at the top.
Thank you.
I'd like to meet with someone at housing over this. No,
Thank you, Bill.
Go
Go ahead.
More or less said the whole thing. This is from 2009. I own 2 buildings. It was incorrectly. I didn't get my 15-day notice. I went down to the housing in Van Nuys. I filed an appeal. I won the appeal in 2010.
2010.
Yes. This has been going on for 3 years now. I call. They're late. I send in notices. They don't send it. I'm owed $780 from the housing now for 3 years. There was an inspector there, Mr. Kropotkin. He was very helpful. I went down in February, and he said, I should have gotten the money. I'll work on it. I'll work on it. Nothing happened. Then I was given, he said by May 31st, you will be getting the money. I did not. He told me then, Sarah Montano, who's the treasurer. Now, I have called this lady, honestly, 10, 12 times in the month of June. I have never received. I'm totally frustrated. I'm due the money. Where is it? Why is it not being paid? Thank you.
What do you live in the city of LA?
I live in Northridge.
In Northridge.
My buildings are in Van Nuys.
Okay. Well, you can, to get additional help and assistance to get down to the bottom of things that are taking so long, you can also call the council office as well, where you live or where the unit is at.
They don't handle it.
She's done all of that.
I've done all that. I've called.
So you called the council office 10 times?
Not the council office. I've called housing.
Yes. No, I'm not saying what you did is wrong. I'm just giving you a little bit of advice.
For a delay, like he said.
I know.
When the money is due, we're
giving you
penalized.
a little bit of advice. You can also call the council office and see if they can assist with getting down to the bottom of
Mitch
why it's...
Englander is my council person. I've called him on several things. He's very nice. He has not helped me.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Yes, my name is Ryan Jarvis. I have 2 units only. I'm a senior citizen. I'm on a fixed income. And all of a sudden, LAHD decided to attack me. They changed their policies, and they came after me like I was some kind of a criminal for being a landlord. Now, I do not, I have no problem with them protecting the safety of renters. I think that's absolutely cool. And it's okay if they look after safety issues that might have adverse effects on renters. I have no problem with that at all. But the way they come in, write a report, declare you guilty, and start fining you immediately, then you go to what they call a manager's hearing, and at the manager's hearing, there's some person who is totally unqualified to sit over this hearing, and she won't let you talk at all. But if there's a tenant from your building shows up, they can talk for an hour, and she'll give them legal advice right there in front of you how they should go about asserting their position. Now, these are the kind of things I'm talking about that is happening right now that are very unfair. And when they came after me, I had to cash in my life insurance so that I could deal with these things. And I'm very upset about it. They violated my constitutional rights. They violated my civil rights. And it isn't over yet. And I'm very upset about it. That's why I'm here to talk to you people. This has got to stop. This is not Nazi Germany. This is Los Angeles. What's going on?
So Ryan, you specifically participated in what they call a manager's hearing? Is that what you call it?
I've been to many managers' hearings.
Okay, but specifically, they're labeled managers' hearings.
That's what the note, that's what the notice says. What it really is some kind of kangaroo court that makes no sense at all. The lady that's running it doesn't know anything about property, landlords, or anything. All she knows is tenant rights, and that's all she's there to assert. She is not on anyone's side but the tenants. It's so unequal, it's unbelievable. And you know, you guys need to deal with this, because do you think that we're going to give up? We're not going to give up. We're going to come here every time until you listen to us and address our concerns.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is putting the city at legal risk big time, because she's taking property, which is money, you know, without due process.
Okay, Mr. Huey, thank you. I called this name earlier, Louis Easy? Louis Easy? Apparently it's not that easy to park the car.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Yeah, he can go to, when he gets here, thank you, he can go to Transportation Committee. Talk about our parking. Okay, thank you. That concludes the public comment cards that were filled out on item number 1. Thank you all very, very much. As the head of the Housing Department is here, and I'm sure we'll be covering these issues as we go forward. Okay, thank you very much, Mercedes. We are now going to go to item number 7. Item number 7, I'm going to go to public comment on item number 7 first. We have Steve Diaz, Joe Loera. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read the writing as best I can. And then we have Curtis Curtis on Spring Street, and then we have Barbara Schultz. Please come forward. I'll start to my right. Your name for the record, please?
Steve Diaz.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead. You're on.
So, good morning, Housing Committee. My name is Steve Diaz, and I am with the Los Angeles Community Action Network. Today, we come before you in terms of agenda item 7, which makes absolutely no sense to us in regards to, A, why this is happening, and B, the council member introducing this motion himself, since he had recused himself previously from decisions being made related to the Amberland project because of conflict of interest. The second question I would like to actually put for the record as well is, they're talking about the property being in financial distress. Yet there's no talk of the portfolio. Where are the public numbers? There's increased amount of public space, retail ground floor space, correction, that's downstairs. There's retail space that's been created within the project with upscale restaurants being housed there. There's numerous activities going on during the downtown art walk where every inch of the ground floor is leased to additional vendors. Where is all that additional revenue going to? Where is that money that's being brought into the property going to? Third point is, it talks about 2009. Well, in 2009, the same developer wanted to buy another property, wanted to buy the Mayfair Hotel located inside of Council District 1. How is it that somebody who now is in financial distress, right after the lawsuit that is being mentioned as possibly causing the distress, was able to buy additional property as well? So there's too many questions in regards to the money. Where is the money going? Where is sort of the city going in terms of the conflict as well? And last but not least, why can't the developer show where is he in conflict? And last but not least, the city has also sued this developer as well, causing the city millions of dollars in legal fees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Joseph Luera. I'm a 10-year tenant of the Alexandria Hotel. I just got a couple of comments that concern me, and that's the what I call the mismanagement of the Alexandria. Back when the building was in transition, and we were promised a lot of things there, and really nothing has been given to us. I mean, we received a 2-burner stove with a sink and a small refrigerator as part of the rehab, but that's about it, and some cheap carpet that they're now ripping out. But, my question is, I don't understand how they're in financial difficulty. I don't. As Steve was saying, that art walk, which I like to refer to as drunk walk, they destroy our building, they destroy our lobby, they destroy our floors, and all this money, where does it go? It doesn't go back to the tenants. We were promised a computer room, we were promised a gym, we were promised all kinds of stuff, and we get nothing. But yet now they're crying for money? They're in some kind of financial distress? And the place is a pigsty, and I invite you people to go down there and take a walk of that place. It's a pigsty. It's dirty, it's filthy. 2 ladies to clean that entire building, and they clean it maybe 1 day a week with dirty stuff. The rest of the time, they're cleaning them 30% empty units that are empty because they lie to the people when they come in. They don't, they lie to them. And I'm not lying, that's the truth. So my question is, what's going on over there? I just don't understand it. I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Weston, Miss Perry, long time no see. Anyway, I'm back. And I'd like to expand.
How do you say your last name, Curtis?
Curtis Killings.
Killings.
Without the actual killing act. Yeah. I'd like to expand on both what the 2 gentlemen before me had said. The Alexandria is basically a pigsty. Okay. And I'm going to center on one event right now. And that is an art walk, which Los Angeles takes pretty much pride in, I gather. And it seems to, after the art walk, they all flow right over to the Alexandria. On the 14th, I was beaten to nearly to death. Okay, on the 14th, this past 14th, at the art walk at the Alexandria, I was beaten nearly to death. I'm going to repeat again. Hospitalized, have brain damage right now. I'm not nowhere near as quick as I used to be, and I doubt if I ever will be. Okay, as a result of this art walk and the so-called security who keeps this place secure. See, that is very dangerous. The place is filthy. Now I'm lucky. I have one of the nicer apartments. But even still, the carpet in that apartment is filthy. It's filthy. Okay? I have rented material myself to clean the carpet, and it still won't get it clean. You see, so so where the monies are going, all these art walk events, all these parties, I like to call them drunk parties. I'm a non-drinker, so you might say I'm biased. Okay, where's the money going? It's not going to the hotel itself. It's going. I would, and I'm here to say it's going in personal pockets, and I'm not ashamed to say it because it's certainly not going to the Alexandria and its upkeep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barbara?
Yes, good morning. Barbara Schultz. I was one of the attorneys who represented the plaintiffs in Woods v. Alexandria Housing Partners. And I might be naive, but I was actually quite shocked when I saw this motion. I was shocked that this council would try to pin the blame for the alleged financial failure of an inept developer on the tenants who fought back against illegal displacement, discrimination, and slum conditions. I was also shocked by what appears to be a political ploy to get financial assistance for this developer, a developer who apparently already wasted the $37 million of public funding already received, a developer that was criminally prosecuted by the city of LA for fire violations, the same sort of violations that caused their Northern California building to burn down, killing senior citizens. I don't think this council needs to waste the time of city attorneys and public officials by asking what happened in settlement discussions, if anyone remembers after 3.5 years. Just read the settlement, read the complaint, and read the settlement. This settlement agreement was primarily an injunctive one, forcing the owner and the city to comply with reasonable accommodation laws, forcing the owner to fix up the property, the slum conditions, and to take back illegally displaced tenants. The relatively small amount of monetary relief was less than, or about 1/70th the sum the developer received in public funding, and it was paid over 3 years ago. It has nothing to do with here and now. It's not the tenant settlement you should be looking at for this failure. It's the system that gives away public dollars to locally untested, politically connected developers who apparently don't know how to run affordable housing developments. Of course, the city should not allow this building to fail for the sake of the 400 low-income tenants, but you need to find a more able owner and management company and not throw good public money after bad. Thank you.
Excuse me, Barbara. Thank you for your participation today, but I have a question for you. Where in the motion does it blame anything on the tenants?
Well,
I keep reading it over and over, and I don't see it.
Well, it states that the Alexandria, the third paragraph, it says that the Alexandria Hotel project is in financial distress. Decisions and actions or inaction taken by both the CRA and City of LA and the City Attorney's Office with regard to the court case settled in 2009 may have contributed to the current distress. Then in the last paragraph, it asks for the city attorney to come forward and talk about confidential settlement discussions. So I think there's an implication that somehow the settlement agreement caused the financial distress. And of course, the lawsuit was brought by the tenants. So that's why I believe that was the point of this motion.
Well, as the maker of the motion, what you're doing is and you have every right to interpret intent on anything in the world or what have you. That's your opinion. But as the maker of the motion, letting you know that I wrote the motion and I'm not blaming the tenants for anything. It's not written in black and white here, but as you read between the lines, just clarifying for you that I have no reason to believe that the tenants did anything, directly to cause that, and that's why I didn't write the tenant anywhere in here, because it's a matter of what the city did. And as you read it, I mentioned all the players that were on the city's side of the table.
Well, I appreciate that, Councilman, and I'm sorry for any misinterpretation, but it seems to me that the tact the council should be taking really has nothing to do with settlement discussions 3.5 years ago. They should look at the building, decide what needs to be done, and decide, based on this developer's, and management company's actions.
So you were one of the lawyers representing the plaintiffs?
Yes, I was.
And So is it your understanding that there was home money, federal home money involved in the Alexandria?
Well, the CRA gave 11.9 million, and then the tax credits gave another $25 million of tax credit funding. We believed at the time that there was federal money. I believe it was home. I'm not sure whether it was ever decided whether there was or wasn't.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have the last speaker on this item who filled out a public comment card is Becky Dennison.
Good morning. My name is Becky Dennison with the Los Angeles Community Action Network. I had a few questions about this motion as well. I do believe that the federal courts found that home funds were obligated but never spent, but the obligation itself was enough to put the requirements on the city for the home funds. I think that, to me, the focus of the motion is on this lawsuit, and its relation to financial distress is not the right tactic. This settlement happened 3.5 years ago. There's no ongoing financial obligation for the city or the landlord to have caused this financial distress. And I actually think a better question to answer would be, is the building in financial distress? Repeating what many of the tenants have said, there's a lot of income flowing into this building, which includes retail, includes events, includes filming, and I'd like to see some proof of financial distress in this building. I also wonder why we don't look at the city's criminal suit against this landlord and how that might have played into any distress in the building. The landlord did plead no contest, which is the same as a guilty plea, so it seems that that should be something that be investigated at this point. I wonder why we care what happened in settlement discussions as opposed to the outcomes, which, in addition to the settlement agreement, there were 2 judgments by a federal court on behalf and in favor of tenants' claims. So it seems to me that what we should be looking at is, are all the legal obligations to the city related to this $12 million grant being met? I can tell you they're not in compliance with local hiring, they're not in compliance with some tenant rights obligations, and they certainly have habitability issues that need to be addressed. And before laying groundwork for more public money into this building, all of these things need to be answered publicly, not in private session. And I would also like for the public to hear the status of the conflict of interest in Councilmember Cardenas in this case, and why it no longer exists and how long ago it was lifted.
Excuse me, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
So LA Can was involved in the lawsuit?
We were.
You were one of the plaintiffs?
We were.
Did LA Can receive any settlement in that as a result of that?
We received money that went back out to tenants for specific issues. Tenants that weren't named in the lawsuit got settlements through us, and we have documentation of that, as does the CRA.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember, would you like to read number 7 into the, would you like me to read council number 7 to the record? Item number 7, motion Cardenas Wesson relative to a request to the CRA LA designated local authority, the city attorney, and LHD to report on the financial status of the Alexandria Hotel located at 501 South Spring Street and the circumstances that led to the settlement of the 2009 federal court case involving the developers in the city.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes the public comment portion of item number 7. Public comment on item number 7 is now closed. Appreciate it very much. Now what I'd like to do is ask our city attorney, I'm going to be asking some questions about what took place in closed session, in the closed door discussions that led to the settlement. Are those questions that I should be asking in open session or in closed session?
Well, we don't believe that there would be a basis for going into a closed session on this item since there's no pending litigation.
But at this time, there appears to be the possibility of threat of litigation, so.
Not sure about that. From discussing it with other attorneys, whether we would have that basis or not.
Okay. All right. Okay, then.
We were just commenting that
Speak a little louder.
We're just commenting that the settlement discussions themselves are still confidential, and therefore, if we can't go into closed session, then we would not be able to divulge publicly those conversations.
Okay, so once again, I'm going to be asking questions about what took place in the closed session and discussions around the settlement. So if I'm going to be asking my city attorney those questions, the committee is going to be asking and wanting to hear the answers to those questions. Is that something that we should do in closed session or open session?
Well, I'm saying that we don't have a legal basis for a closed session under the pending litigation since there is none pending, and there doesn't seem to be a basis for a threat of litigation. Therefore, anything that would be subject to the attorney-client privilege would not be able to be discussed in open session unless the privilege is waived.
Okay. And if I ask questions about what took place in those closed-door discussions on the settlement, is that attorney-client privilege information?
It could be.
Okay. I'm letting you know now, those are the questions I'm going to ask. So as my attorney, what do you recommend? Do we continue an open session to discuss those?
Well, I think that we can continue an open session, and if there is a specific question that's asked that would involve the attorney-client privilege, then we can advise you as the inability to answer that question openly.
Okay. And then if they can't answer that question in open session, then what do we do? Because I want the answer.
Well, they could individually speak to just as long as they don't speak to a quorum of the committee.
So as the chair of this committee, as an item that was agendized, and I ask a question that one of our staff or our city attorney advises us that we should go and we should not discuss that publicly, then you're saying that I would have to revert to, say, them inviting them to my office to ask that question instead of asking it so that my colleagues and the committee can hear the answer to that question as agendized item? Take your time.
I know. I don't. What? Colleague concurs that basically what we're suggesting is go forward, ask the questions. They may or may not even recall the answers, but if there is something that would violate the attorney-client privilege, we wouldn't be able to say discuss it because there isn't. The only basis would be the litigation exception, and since there is nothing pending and have been advised there's nothing that would warrant the threat of litigation as a basis for going into a closed session, it just would not be something that could be discussed with the committee.
Okay, fine. Listen up, attorneys. Okay, if we could have the staff as outlined in the motion come forward to the table. Representative from the city attorney's office who was there during the discussions. Can you let the committee know, briefly explain to us what occurred in federal court that caused, or what was the action or the statements made by the judge in federal court that moved it to a negotiation between the parties with another judge present, my understanding?
There was, and...
Your name again for the record?
Yeah, I'm Noreen Vincent from the city attorney's office, and Kurt...
I'm Kurt Kidder from the city attorney's office.
There was a lawsuit filed, and I was actually on a leave when the initial lawsuit was filed, and it was filed in federal court before Judge Margaret Morrow. It alleged that the Alexandria, the CRA, and the city had violated various laws, including the Americans with Disabilities Act and various other state and federal laws. The judge found that she ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, I think, as was indicated here before by Ms. Schultz and Ms. Dennison. So we had an adverse ruling from the judge. At the time, the City of Los Angeles had discussed the possibility of giving $2 million in HUD money to the Alexandria, to the CRA to give to the Alexandria. That was a discussion, it was a motion by Councilmember Huizar. The city, however, never actually did give that money. And so it was the city's position that we really didn't have a relationship with the Alexandria. We didn't have an agreement with the CRA. The judge nevertheless found that the city was going to be held responsible. Judge Morrow referred the matter to the magistrate, Jeffrey Johnson, for...
Can you hold on for 1 second? In that portion of what you just reported, did the judge try to clarify whether or not the city did or did not have a relationship as you just described? And it's my understanding that this was in federal court.
Yes.
Because there was understanding in the lawsuit that it was because there was federal money in the building.
And there were also federal issues that were raised. And I don't know that there was federal money at the time, because my understanding was that we did not actually give, the city did not give money at the time. And we were trying to piece together, because it's been 4 years ago now, so we're trying to bring our collective memories together and piece together what actually transpired. The judge nevertheless found that we were going to be held responsible, and therefore all of us were sent to Jeffrey Johnson, magistrate, to work out the details of a settlement. Initially, the case was handled, both the city and the CRA were sued. The initial case was handled by Murray Cain, the Murray Cain law firm. After the adverse ruling, there was a decision made that we should no longer be using Murray Cain, and the CRA decided that there was a conflict, a potential conflict, that they wanted to reserve the right to potentially come after the city for damages. Accordingly, the CRA retained Myers-Nave, and the city essentially represented itself. Ellen Falls from the Economic Development Division represented the city in the settlement discussions. Ellen has since retired, and so I'm here trying to remember what Ellen did.
So you weren't in the room during these proceedings?
I was in the room for some of the proceedings. I was not involved in all of it, but I was there for some of it. And my recollection is that there were a number of meetings over a period of time with Magistrate Johnson. He took the parties into separate rooms and then eventually would bring us back together. Because of the potential conflict, we were not involved. That is, neither Ellen nor I was involved in discussions that involved the CRA and the judge, or the CRA and the plaintiffs, only insofar as all of us were put together. So we were not privy to the legal strategy or the reasoning that was the CRA's at that time. And we did not actually have money in the project. The settlement required that the city do basically only one thing, and that is that we contribute money to the relocation of the tenants. So we put into a fund that was administered by the CRA the sum of $200,000. In addition, we contributed $25,000 to pay for attorney's fees. I do have a copy of the settlement agreement, and it appears that the Alexandria was obligated to do a number of things under the terms of the agreement. Most of what it appears they were obligated to do was to comply with the law, to essentially provide reasonable accommodation to tenants. There were a lot of concerns by the tenants that they were living in an uninhabitable building, that they didn't have reasonable accommodations made, that one individual indicated that he couldn't get from his parking space into the building. He'd previously been allowed to use an elevator and was told he couldn't use that. So there were other individuals who talked about the fact that the toilets were not available, they stopped working, the elevator stopped working, they couldn't get outside the building, there was a problem with the air conditioning. So there were a variety of things that the Alexandria was required to fix. The CRA was required to come in and install air conditioning units. I believe they may have, I believe that the Alexandria may have removed them. There was an issue about it being a historic building, and there were certain concerns about the air conditioning. Eventually, I believe the CRA was responsible for installing the air conditioning units. And then there was a task force.
Hold on a second. All of this was going on while the building was being renovated, or the building was not being renovated?
The building had started to be renovated, and my understanding was that essentially they chose to do what was called an on-site relocation, so that instead of relocating tenants off-site while the building was being rehabbed, they moved tenants to different areas and different units within the building.
Okay. But hold on one second. I have some questions for the Housing Department. Either one of you, they're technical questions about obligations of landlords during renovations and the difference between obligations depending on which dollars are involved. For example, if there's home money involved in a project, is the requirements for a landlord to a tenant in a renovation, as was going on in Alexandria, is there a difference in the requirement as to how they handle the tenants when it comes to relocation, as was just described within the building, and things of that nature?
Rushmore Cervantes with the Housing Department. It really depends on the nature of the rehabilitation. If it's extensive, then a relocation assistance must be provided. If it's something that's temporary, they can be relocated to another unit in the building.
But my first question is, when home money is involved, is the bar or the requirement or list of details of how a tenant is to be either compensated and or relocated, is it different than when home money is not involved? I don't know that answer. In an overall, and also what was described as an overall rehabilitation of the entire building?
If it's extensive, there are federal requirements about federal relocation, regardless of the dollars, isn't it, or how much or anything else. So there are requirements, but there is no home money in this building.
So one of the speakers just described earlier that apparently, and we were reminded by one of our city attorneys, that there seemed to be an attempt of home money being placed into the project. But it's been clarified by our city attorney that the home money never got allocated and or ledgered into.
They never received home dollars. And I can tell you that the Housing Department was never in favor of them receiving home dollars because of the other problems that they had on code. So any discussion of them receiving home dollars was not one that came from the Housing Department or one that the Housing Department ever was in favor of. And that was on the record then. I was the general manager then.
There never was a contract to transfer that money.
Correct.
So
to clarify for this committee, if a process begins of the possibility of something taking place, such as in this case, home dollars being allocated to a particular property, and the actual action taking place, i.e. going through council, signatures, checks and or money wired, and the money goes into the property, is there a drastic difference between one and the other as far as obligations and or activities that ensue or guidelines that are supposed to be followed?
In some ways, yes, because if the money is not expended, this is not an unusual, let me stop. Nationally, because home is a development program, right, deals fall apart all of the time, as they do in the private sector. So you can't have something apply if dollars aren't actually expended, because deals ebb and flow, they fall apart. So,
thank you, Mercedes. But in this case, you just described where monies are allocated, yet they're not used, right? Because money can be allocated, and all of a sudden, if that money's not accessed, then that money was not applied to the project.
I don't believe there's ever a contract for home dollars in this deal.
So that's getting back to this deal. In this deal, there may have been a starting of paperwork, a beginning of some kind of paper trail. But the fact of the matter, in this particular building, the Alexandria, home dollars were never actually even allocated and or expended, because you can't expend money that wasn't allocated, right?
That's my 3.5-year memory.
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't thought about the Alexandria in a long time, but that's my memory. I know we don't have, I don't remember any contract at all ever, by the Housing Department ever being initiated for this deal.
That seems to be the consistent statement today, that home money never actually was applied at the Alexandria.
That's what I believe to be true, but it is 3.5 years ago, and I've been busy,
The
so
reason why I'd
we'll
like
go
to
look.
get that clarified, and then get back to you in a second, the reason why I'd like to get that clarified is, first and foremost, it's my understanding that the reason why the case ended up in federal court was because, and I read part of it, it said that home money was part of it.
Well,
when the lawsuit began.
But they can speak to this. There are many ways for a plaintiff to find themselves in a federal forum. And the judge, you know, the answer to any question which begins, may a federal judge, is always yes, right? So a federal judge can find that there was enough of a discussion that the judge, decides that they're keeping jurisdiction. It has nothing to do with home rules actually applying to the deal. It's the action that federal judge individually in this case took. It is also true that in this case, the plaintiff asserted other federal issues. So the judge chose to take jurisdiction of the case in federal court for many reasons, that there was a whisper of home money among them. That is the discretion of the federal judge, having nothing to do with whether home dollars ever actually fit. So it's not the issue of whether home dollars actually went in. It's what the federal judge in their discretion chose to do. Here, they chose to take jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm. But what I'd like to get, thank you very much, and you're absolutely right, especially, for example, part of the lawsuit had to do with discrimination. That's a federal case.
Boom.
Exactly. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to have, and what makes this complicated is the CRA does not report to the City of LA anymore. But this, in fact, took place when CRA did, in fact, was part of the City of Los Angeles. What I need this committee to get clarified, for the sake of us as policymakers, because this building still is in the City of Los Angeles. This building still has over 400 units of affordability that's there. And if the concern that I have is, for example, or help me understand this, Mercedes, if this building, for example, is foreclosed on, what happens to those covenants on that affordability?
They remain intact.
They remain intact in the sense of?
The foreclosure does not extinguish those covenants. So when it goes into foreclosure and it's sold, it goes with those covenants. And so the value of the property takes into account the obligations that it has.
Okay. So if anybody were to take on this property in a foreclosure, they would buyer beware that those affordability requirements follow.
Yes.
Even though the money may not follow or what have you, because the money was already.
Well, the money is already in the building, so the money does follow. It's in the building. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whatever was put in the building. Yes. So what I'd like the staff to clarify of what took place in those proceedings is, it's my understanding that a question was asked of the CRA staff and that was in the room, and also the city attorney who was representing the CRA. A question was asked about the home money, and that the people at the table representing the city, the CRA, city attorney's office, did not answer the question about home money.
I would not have been in meetings that took place with.
I'm not asking you to give me that answer right now. That's why I said that what I would like to happen is for you to come back with the answers to that question, as to why, when we are defending ourselves and a question is asked of us from a judge that would help clarify where we stand, or one element of why we're even there, why we remained silent and did not clarify that answer to the judge.
I do know this much, is that with respect to Magistrate Johnson, when there were.
I'm not talking about Johnson. We're still stuck on the first.
Oh, you're on Margaret
federal
Morrow? Okay.
Judge. But Judge Johnson, it's my understanding, his responsibility was to mediate, be part of the negotiation to try to settle, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but first and foremost, it was the instruction of the federal judge, and I don't know her name.
Judge Margaret Morrow.
What's that?
Judge Margaret Morrow?
Judge Morrow? Okay. Judge Morrow had asked a question, a simple question, of the CRA and the CRA's attorneys as to whether there was home money, and they remained silent. They either refused and or ignored or didn't hear the question and didn't answer that question, which if the answer to that question would also have relieved the housing department, the rest of the city, from being in the room. Because absent the home money, was there any reason why the housing department should have been in the room? Or been part of the proceedings?
And we weren't
or
in
been
the
part of the
room.
lawsuit?
No.
No. Okay. So,
We weren't there. We weren't a party. We weren't present. We weren't negotiating. So.
but if home monies were involved, doesn't that implicate that there's some connection or responsibility to the housing department in that building?
No, because in many, I wouldn't say many, but in some instances, this body has chosen, against my counsel, to allocate home dollars outside of the housing department process.
But in this case, they weren't allocated. But go ahead.
But so if those dollars were allocated by the council directly to the project, LHD would not have been involved in administering it, and the CRA would have been the administrating entity in any event.
Unless in that motion, the motion actually stated that the housing department will have such and such responsibilities?
If you had done that.
But in this case, no home dollars were given, so, so thank you for that clarification of sometimes we override you.
You're
I
right.
get overridden all the time at home.
I guess that's buyer beware, too.
But the housing department was not involved in the settlement negotiations. The person from the city, it was actually Gabriel Sandoval from the mayor's office, who was the point person in terms of where the discussions were going and approval of various things. So the only point at which the housing department, to my knowledge, was involved was actually with Judge Magistrate Johnson on the issue of whether there was the money available to provide to them, and the answer to that was no. And he accepted that.
But this is Judge Johnson,
Judge Johnson, yes.
but not Judge Morrow.
As I say, I unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, I wasn't involved in the case. I was off on leave, and so I was not involved in the initial matter of the case before Judge Morrow.
And the attorney that was
Well, at that time, it was actually Kane Balmer and Berkman who was representing both the city and the CRA. It was outside counsel.
And who was in-house attorney who was present?
Well, it was really, I believe, someone from, it was the CRA that retained Kane Balmer and Berkman, so it would have been one of the CRA lawyers that supervised outside counsel.
Okay. All right. And then what documentation, as my attorney, what documentation could you provide the members of this committee when it comes to what was documentation that was created and or provided or retained by the city involved in the case?
We can certainly go back to the files. We did pull the file that has the settlement agreement and look to see whatever we have in there. We did bring the settlement agreement to City Council for approval, and whatever transmittal we would have sent would also be part of the record.
So one of my concerns is whether or not the representatives in the room, or one and or other representatives in the room, did or did not participate fully to defend ourselves in that lawsuit. That is my concern. So I'm not only concerned with the settlement, that seems to be the aftermath of whatever took place prior to that. I'm also concerned with what took place from the first day before Judge Morrow and also through the deliberations with Judge Johnson to see if they did in fact act in the defense of the city of Los Angeles at the appropriate level.
I will go back and we'll go through the files and pull whatever we have.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you all very, very much. So any contributing, I mean, CRA is somewhat absent now, but anything that the Housing Department can contribute with information that's been requested by this committee, if you could help us, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Okay, we'll hold this item in committee so that we can get a report back from the staff. Thank you very much. Okay. Items 2, 4, 5, and 6 were acted on as a communication of the chair. I'd like to bring those items back forward so that we could move them forward as a full complement of this committee.
And Mr. Chair, it wasn't clear whether or not what you wanted to recommend was the department reports or the CAO reports on 4, 5, and 6?
CAO report.
So item number 2 is the LHD report, and then items number,
LHD report on that item, yes?
yeah, and the rest are CAO reports.
Okay. Right.
And we still have item 3 on the agenda?
What's that?
We still have item 3 on the agenda?
Yes. Okay, so those items move forward, the 3-0 vote of the committee. Now we are on item number 3.
Item number 3, communication from the mayor and CAO report relative to approval of the results of the Gang Reduction and Youth Development, RFP for citywide gang prevention and intervention services, and authorization to negotiate and execute contracts for the period of July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2013, authorization to amend contracts with various contractors to provide gang prevention and intervention services, authorization to amend the contract with the University of Southern California for Youth Service Eligibility Tool Services, authorization to release an RFP for citywide evaluation services for 2012-13, and authorization to fund the 2012 Summer Night Lights program.
Thank you very much. We'll go to public comment first. Due to the time element and us having to start council in a few minutes, we're going to go to 1 minute each per presenter. From the public, Hector Verdugo, Lou Calanche, Liliana Martinez, and Maria Lopez. Please come up. I apologize for 1 minute apiece because council members have to get back to council. We only have about 7. No, 8. Yes, please begin. Am I right?
Hi, my name is Hector Verdugo. I'm the Associate Executive Director of Homeboy Industries and a board member on Legacy LA. My concern is just for the decision of not Legacy not getting the grid contract. I was part of, with Luca Lanche, of putting the organization together, and I understand the significance of community members being really involved in the intervention, the gang intervention in Ramona Gardens. I've seen programs come and go, and this is the first program that I feel like has been a real grassroots put together. I'm not good at words, but I feel that Legacy LA would really help Ramona Gardens in the intervention of gang reduction.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Is it okay if I translate?
Absolutely.
Yo le voy a traducir. Tiene un minuto.
Por favor.
Mi nombre es María López. Yo vivo en Ramona Garden y soy madre soltera de 4 niños. Y yo le doy gracias a ellos porque me han ayudado mucho en Legacy, a que mis hijos no estuvieran involucrados en las drogas.
My name is Maria. I'm a single mother of 4, and I'm very grateful to the work that Legacy has done. It's really helped me to keep my kids out of drugs.
Y a que continuaran la escuela porque es difícil uno de madre soltera estar a criar 4 niños. Y siempre ellos, cuando yo busqué ayuda, nunca la encontré y yo me fui a Legacy, me recomendó a Legacy y yo ahí, gracias a Dios, mis hijos están bien, no se involucraron en las gangas y están yendo a la escuela. Y los 4 también, y mi hija, gracias a Dios, está trabajando, tiene un trabajo bien, porque ellos me han ayudado mucho.
Should I translate?
Yes.
Okay. So it's very difficult for a mother of 4 to raise kids in Ramona Gardens, and I went to other locations to solicit services and never found anything, and I'm lucky to have found Legacy LA because they've really helped guide my children, and thank goodness that they're doing well now. I have not gotten into the gang.
¿Algo más? Okay. Gracias, señora. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Liliana Martínez. Buenos días, señor Wilson. No sé si me recuerda. Ok. Estoy aquí porque yo soy una madre preocupada por la comunidad de Ramona Gardens, que siempre ha querido que tengamos buenos servicios en nuestra comunidad, porque mi comunidad ha sido reconocida siempre por la violencia, las pandillas y el crimen.
Good morning, council members. Good morning, Mr. Wesson. I hope you remember me. I'm here because our community has long suffered lots of violence and has also been seen as a very, very violent community.
So, mi preocupación es la siguiente: al saber que Legacy ya no va a tener fondos para seguir trabajando en la comunidad, yo como madre me preocupo porque tengo todavía un niño de 13 años y a mí Legacy me ha enseñado 3 cosas importantes en la vida de mi hijo. ¿Dónde está tu hijo? ¿Con quién está tu hijo? ¿Y qué está haciendo tu hijo? Que son cosas muy importantes para nosotros como madres, que a veces ignoramos tantas cosas porque nos absorbe el trabajo.
I hope I can remember all that. A ver si me voy a acordar. I'm here because I'm very concerned that Legacy LA will not continue to be funded under this program, since it's the first time that we've had services in Ramona Gardens. And through Legacy, I've learned 3 key things: that where is your child, who is your child with, and what is he doing? What is your child doing?
Entonces, nosotros como madres, esas son las cosas principales que nos ha enseñado. Y Legacy ha trabajado duramente en nuestra comunidad. Hemos tenido otras fundaciones, organizaciones que han venido, pero nunca hemos encontrado en realidad la ayuda que nosotros necesitamos como madres de la comunidad, porque nuestra comunidad es de bajos recursos y no tenemos a veces las ayudas necesarias.
Legacy is really important in the community because we finally have an organization that is providing these services. Other organizations have come and gone, but have not provided these services long-term in our community, so it's really important to continue to provide these services.
Entonces no creemos que sea justo que le hayan quitado los fondos a Legacy, que nos ha ayudado, en verdad nos ha ayudado bastante. Si ustedes pueden ir, ustedes que dan el dinero, se lo otorgan a organizaciones, deben de cerciorarse y estar seguros a quién se los están dando y qué es lo que están haciendo. Verificar su trabajo, no nada más, ahí está, ustedes distribuyanlo, no. Tienen que verificar en dónde se está trabajando, qué es lo que están haciendo en el lugar, para cómo se está empleando ese dinero.
It isn't fair that these the way the money, I'm trying to condense it, the way the money is given away, that is given to organizations that are not providing services, and it is our job and your job in the city to ensure that these organizations that are getting these contracts are indeed providing the services that they say they're providing, and it's not fair to take it away from an organization that is currently providing the services.
No, ya pasó el tiempo.
Sí, yo creo que puedo seguir más, pero ya.
I'll try to keep mine short. I mean, we brought even our clients, that are our grid clients, and I would hope that they get a chance to speak as a testament to our services. My name is Lou Calancho. I'm the executive director of Legacy LA. Started the organization to deal with the gang problem in Ramona Gardens, and subsequently we've actually developed a lot of programs through GRID, and luckily, we've actually leveraged GRID money to get other foundation money to provide Prong 2 services. I think we're the only organization providing Prong 2 in the community, so we've been able to leverage the GRID money. What I would urge you to, my big concern right now is we weren't selected to continue providing services in Ramona Gardens, but my big concern at this point is due diligence. There was never a site visit conducted. The proposals were due in January, and we didn't find out until April. I think that was plenty of time to conduct site visits. It's $500,000 that are being awarded just in this zone without a site visit to really verify that the services that the organizations are saying that they're providing are being provided, and to see who's doing the work, who's actually doing the work. So I would urge you to throw out the results and restart the process.
Thank you very much, Lou.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go down to start
Okay.
council meeting. We went shopping together, just so you
Okay.
know. That's how we know each other.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. President. Eduardo Martinez, gracias, thank you. Eduardo Martinez, Marlene Arazo, Jose Torres, and Kenny Green.
Yeah, let me go down and try to.
Yeah, thank you. 1 minute apiece. You can get started. Go ahead. Say your name for the record.
All right. Hello, my name is Eduardo Martinez. I am here from Legacy and from GRID and their programs. I'm here because GRID and Legacy LA do us good. There's a lot of services and stuff. And SEA, the ones that did get the money, I see them and they don't do anything in there. Like, there's people there that are part of the program. They just go say 30 seconds, they fill out something, and then they just talk to them for a little. Don't even tell them anything. They just leave, and then they don't really do anything for the community. And Legacy LA really does do many things, and like they end up actually succeeding at that's about it.
Thank you, Eduardo. Go ahead. Your name for the record?
I'm Jose Torres, and I've been in Legacy for 3 years, and I've been like in like multiple programs with them, and they've helped me.
It's all right, don't worry about it.
They helped me a lot, and well, I used to go with Saya for counseling because I was on probation, and I would go for like 30 seconds. I'd just sign in and stuff, and I wouldn't really get anything out of it. But as soon as I joined like Legacy, they helped me like with counseling, hours, and book club, and it was fun, and it helped me a lot to stay out of trouble because I was on probation, and they helped me get off probation recently. And ever since I've been going, you know, I have something to go to, Legacy, and stay out of trouble. Like I could be doing drugs or something, but instead of that, like they keep me out of that, and I just go to Legacy when I'm bored instead of doing bad things.
Good. Thank you.
And yeah, I don't think it's fair that Saya gets it because they basically don't do nothing. Because like when I get arrested in Ramona Gardens, Saya's not there, Legacy's there. Like they help me get off. Like with the cops, they talk to them, but Saya ain't not there.
Thank you, Jose. Appreciate it. Marlene Arazo?
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna try to keep it under 1 minute. All right, so before Legacy, like I was like pushed out by the system, like the education system. Like I didn't have no goals, but like when I met my mentor at Barrio Action, like she helped me, you know, she helped me like just like get through school, right? When everybody else at Barrio didn't help me, like she don't work there no more. She works at Legacy, which is when I found out about Legacy, and like because of like this other grant, like she doesn't work there no more, right? So I lost her, but like she like still pushed me to stay at Legacy, and now like I have goals, like, you know, I want to become a doctor and everything, but like I don't think it's fair that, you know, that the other like, you know, program got it, because like it's just like I don't know, I don't think it's right, but I don't know, I don't know what else to say, but I don't know, I just don't think it's right. Like other guys said, like right now I could be doing something bad, but you know, I chose to be here at 8:30 in the morning. It's summer, I don't have school, but I chose to be here. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. And you will be a doctor. Just keep doing the right things, you'll be a doctor.
Thank you.
Kenny.
Hey, how you doing, Prez?
Dr. Green.
Almost. You know, just speaking on the GRID program, you know, very supportive of it, because if it wasn't in place in the area that we're at, you know, it would be the community would be running amok. I mean, we had in the first 56 days of this year, we had 7 murders. And with the GRID place, you know, we had no retaliation, and we're held accountable for every violent act that happens, you know, in our area. So we got summer night lights cranking up, you know, and, you know, right now the youth squad is in training for that, and, you know, we're ready for the most dangerous part of the year. And, you know, very supportive. I just wish that, you know, we could probably leverage more money for the GRID, because it's probably one of the most, it's the best kept secret in LA as far as public safety issues. So, I mean, we just need more money, Tony.
Yep, more money. All right. Thank you very much, Kenny. Okay, that concludes our public comment on item number 3. Public comment is closed on item number 3. Can the staff from the mayor's office please come forward? My first question to you before you get into your brief presentation, as council has begun, can you state for the record what was the result of the Ramona Gardens area GRID and contract and process?
The Guillermo Céspedes mayor's office, Mildred Lopez was the person overseeing the process. I would allow her to speak on that, and then I'll come back and summarize some things.
So we issued the
request for proposals back in early November of this year. We received...
November last year.
Last year, I'm sorry.
This fiscal year.
Yes, this fiscal year. We received an application from Legacy LA and Soledad Enrichment Action for the North Hollenbeck grid zone, which encompasses Ramona Gardens, but other areas as well, El Sereno and Lincoln Heights. We conducted a minimum qualifications review. Both agencies passed that review. We put together a panel of folks that are familiar with what we do in terms of prevention, intervention, familiar with the community, to read and rate the proposals. So with Legacy and with SEA, our process requires that we conduct an interview if, as a result of the written proposals, they come within a 5-point range. That did not take place in the North Hollenbeck grid zone, so we didn't take that next process. We do have the option to conduct a site visit, as is, written in the document. We decided not to do that, but instead, if agencies came within a 5-point range, we could conduct an interview, but that did not take place in this area. Now, just so you know, for the last 3 years, Legacy LA has been a subcontractor and been providing services in the North Hollenbeck grid zone. To our surprise, there was a break in this collaboration, which we thought worked successfully, as Legacy LA does have,
Who was Legacy LA contracting under?
SEA.
Soledad Enrichment Action.
So it appears that this time SEA continued to put in an application, but did not include them as their subcontractor.
I think they both applied separately.
Yes.
Okay, they both applied separately.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm getting a note. Did you apply separately? Oh, yeah. Okay.
But we were notified 1 week before the proposals were due that we were no longer part of the contract. So we had 1 week to put the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
That's it.
Okay, now for clarification, Lou, you just clarified that it was SEA that notified you late, that they weren't, that you guys, apparently their application was going to be without your collaborative, correct? Sorry. But yeah, please. I apologize for the time constraint. I just want to clarify.
It's okay. I'd rather it be like there.
Sure. No.
New
It's okay. No,
what was the question again?
No, he's right. He's right.
Okay.
So you were notified by SEA, as you described late, that they were not going to include you in their
Right.
proposal.
Not until I contacted their executive director, because I was not getting a response from their program manager, did I get a response saying, like, sorry, you're not part of our proposal anymore, when in December they said we were.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it was tactical, like, okay, you have 1 week to put something together, but we did. We put an application, a good application together in 1 week.
Okay.
That's kind of how it happened.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know that little details. Thank you very much. Mildred, anything else? Okay, go ahead.
Just that at a service level, that we're very aware of the in-reach that Legacy LA has in Ramona Gardens and the connections they have with the community. So I think what they presented before, we very much are aware and support that.
Okay, and that particular grid zone is, from your recollection of their application, SEA's application, they're going to be providing what used to be provided by Legacy. They're going to provide it directly, or they found somebody else to subcontract with?
Their application included a subcontract with Aztecs Rising. So during the contract negotiation process, what takes place is we meet with the recommended contractor, and we identify, certain hotspot areas and how they intend to meet the needs of the families within each of the areas. So North Hollenbeck is unique in that it's our largest grid zone. So it's not just Ramona Gardens, and that's why we've changed the name from Ramona Gardens to North Hollenbeck, because it also encompasses a large part of El Sereno and Lincoln Heights. So when we meet with Soledad Enrichment Action, we expect that they will have a plan on how they intend to serve Ramona Gardens, knowing that Legacy LA is currently the service provider and has in-reach into that community. Now, I must share with you that according to the RFP document, we do have the option during the contract negotiation process to determine that if an entity that was not included in the application is vital to the work on the ground, we can recommend that they subcontract with them.
Okay. And then therefore they would have to negotiate, get back to you as to whether or not the negotiation was successful.
Correct, and we've done that in the past. And as you know the importance of gang intervention and in-reach into the neighborhood gangs and so forth, so that's what we primarily look at.
Thank you. Good one.
No, I was just going to reiterate that during the contract negotiation phase, we do have the option to, in essence, recommend that providers collaborate in the interest of delivering the best service into the community.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the appeals process, were there any appeals in this go-round that were exercised?
Yes, they were. There were two. One by Legacy LA and the other one by Cush Incorporated from Watts.
Okay. And then, so I haven't heard from the other organization, at least in this committee, about their process and how that went. So the process was completed, and then your office made your conclusions.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Did it result in any reversals?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, for the record, since this is not videotaped, it's recorded. We are operating at this moment as a minority committee. The two other members did have to go to council. So, anything else, Guillermo? How is it going when it comes to? It was a rough ride during the budget process to even keep the money that we have. In this process. I warn you that I'm not going to be here next year in the budget process. At least that's my plan. And it doesn't look very good for the federal government and their fiscal policy next year to give us any help. So you're going to kind of be left on your own. How do you see that? Are you working toward apprising and or creating a better understanding from my colleagues on the council as to how important this is to our city?
Well, we are, and it took several years, as you know, to develop a relationship that was functional and mutually respectful, and we expect that that's going to happen. I think that we have been reaching out to other council members, and we have some work to do. But we fully expect that we'll be able to collaborate with council. We don't expect that things will remain. In other words, we have to develop new relationships, and we expect that will take place. And we're actively seeking those relationships. And those relationships are based on, to some degree, explaining what GRID does to all of the council members. So we'll be actively doing that.
Yeah, GRID is not exactly involved in every single council district.
Correct.
Very heavily involved in some districts more than others. I'm just hoping that my colleagues share my commitment going forward. This was created while I was here. It was created under the current mayor. Our current mayor, because of term limits, will be leaving his responsibilities in the middle of next year, at the beginning of the subsequent fiscal year. So I just hope that we're able to not lose any dollars that we've been able to hold on to, and by some miracle, hopefully, we can actually get more dollars, because there's certainly more need than we've been providing resources for.
There is. We will continue working on that. As you said, it was a battle getting through budget this year, but that's the nature of this work.
Okay. And then also, one of the things that I'd like to ask you, especially since we have people in the room who did apply and were not successful, as the year goes on, as things occur, is it possible for us to, as Mildred mentioned, to recommend that they reassociate and perhaps recontract with some subcontractors in order to get to a better place when it comes to activities
Yes,
unfortunately, that are going to take place during the year.
it is, and what we will do at this point is that we will do yet another round of on-the-ground investigation and dialogue and all of that. Our main interest is that communities get the best service possible. And so to that degree, we have to respect the RFP process, but we also have the ability to make some recommendations as to what will result in the best service possible. So we will take that on immediately.
And one of the things that's so hard for government to do in a documented way, one of the main elements in intervention is something that is called a license to operate. How do you score that? How do you? It's more a rhetorical question. It's so hard for government to stand by something that is more felt than actually you can say videotape or you can actually put into a nice letter. A license to operate is something that is not so much tangible to the naked eye. It's something that is felt on the streets and something that's understood only in that locality, only with those particular hearts and minds. And it's so hard to translate that into an RFP process.
It is difficult to translate, and we spoke with our city attorney at length about that issue. I think that the benefit that we have as a government agency, is that we do respond to all incidents of violence throughout the city, so that we have intervention in particular. We don't just evaluate written reports. We spend a great deal of time on the ground with them. So we learn a little bit about what's taking place. That does not mean that we have a license to operate. That does not mean, it just means that it's a different oversight process than with prevention. With intervention, we don't just read reports. The reports are necessary, but there's another element to that that has to do with spending time on the ground and really asking the questions and seeing who does what when. So I don't know that we always get it 100% right, but I think we have a closer view than most government agencies would because we're on the ground.
Well, those of you who applied, I encourage you, and did not get awarded, I encourage you to continue to stay in communication both with the organizations who have in fact been awarded, and also with the mayor's office and your council member, et cetera, to make sure that, because this is a dynamic process. It's not black and white. I mean, we have to try to make the RFP process as black and white as possible, but with so many intangibles, it makes it very, very difficult for government to do it well or do it perfect. But I just want to say to all of you who are doing work out there in the streets, it's very, very much appreciated. We just hope and pray that you continue to do that in somehow, some way, and then we will go ahead and see improvements in our process and awards that actually meet the mark more accurately every single year, and changes that may take during the year as well, take place during the year. So thank you all for your comments. Thank you very much to the mayor's office for all of your wonderful work. It's very unique work, and it's something that again, sometimes it's hard to actually. Eduardo Martinez. See, I was talking to him. Eduardo, stand up. I want you to meet Eduardo Martinez, who works for me as a planning deputy. So meet your tocayo, meet your twin, and also if you could take a minute to talk to each other, that'd be pretty cool. So with that, we will. It'll be a recommendation of the chair to approve the CAO report. So we'll move that item as recommendation of the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the items as agendized on today's agenda. Is there, we're opening up for general public comment. Bill Cohen? Is Bill Cohen here? Going once? Going? Bill Huey? Okay. So that concludes the general public comment for this committee. This committee is now adjourned.